It happened that green and crazy summer when Frankie was 12 years old. This was a summer when for a long time she had not been a member. She belonged to no club and was a member of nothing in the world. Frankie had become an unjoined person who hung around in doorways, and she was afraid. In June, the trees were bright, dizzy green, but later the leaves darkened, and the town turned black and shrunken under the glare of the sun. At first, Frankie walked around doing one thing and another. The sidewalks of the town were gray in the early morning and at night, but the noon sun put a glaze on them, so that the cement burned and glittered like glass. The sidewalks finally became too hot for Frankie's feet, and also she got herself in trouble. She was in so much secret trouble that she thought it was better to stay at home. And at home, there was only Bernice Sadie Brown and John Henry West. The three of them sat at the kitchen table, saying the same things over and over, so that by August, the words began to rhyme with each other and sound strange. The world seemed to die each afternoon, and nothing moved any longer. At last, the summer was like a green, sick dream, or like a silent, crazy jungle under glass. And then, on the last Friday of August, all this was changed. It was so sudden that Frankie puzzled the whole blank afternoon, and still she did not understand. Welcome to Positive Readings. That was the opening paragraph to Carson McCullers, The Member of the Wedding. Here we read about Frankie, or F. Jasmine as she prefers to call herself, and how she became what she called an unjoined person. Before we get into this though, another unjoined person worth reading about would be Paul Nunmaker. You can find out all about him here in the novel Commuting. Please look in the description for a link and you can get a copy. Carson McCullers was a Southern writer born in Georgia. She's probably most famous for her first novel, The Heart is a Lonely Hunter. This novel is more complex than The Member of the Wedding. There's more characters, but many of the themes and many of the situations and the environment that you get in The Heart is a Lonely Hunter can also be found in A Member of the Wedding. But because we have less characters, I feel like it goes deeper into this one character. It's a richer novel in that sense. The novel's called The Member of the Wedding. Frankie's brother, who we don't really see much at all in this novel, he was a soldier. He's gone away. He decides he's going to get married, and that's what Frankie, the 12-year-old sister, is waiting for. And she suddenly gets this idea that her and her brother and his new wife are going to go away. She's going to go on their honeymoon, and she's going to leave her town. And that's really what most of this novel is, just her anticipation of trying to get out of this town. It's her feeling alienated by the town. It's her getting into some trouble like she talked about. There's a theft. She gets kind of propositioned by this soldier. He gives her a drink and then makes a date with her. And then later on, there's a scene where he basically tries to kiss her, and more than that, in his hotel room, and she fights him off. Much of this novel, though, takes place in the kitchen, and it's just Frankie, this young boy who goes by John Henry West, and Bernice, who is the cook, the cleaner of the house. She's a black woman, and this is very similar to what we get in The Heart is a Lonely Hunter. In that novel, Heart is a Lonely Hunter, we have many of the same elements: a father who works in a jewelry shop or fixes watches. We have a servant who has this close relationship with the young girl who lives there. And as I said, that novel is a bit more complex. The servant's father has an important role, also a black man. Richard Wright found that Carson McCullers wrote about black people with a real humanity. That's how he put it, in a way that he never experienced before outside of, say, the black community writing about black characters. That's quite a compliment, and I think that's true in this novel as well. The character Bernice, although she's not the main character, you can definitely see that there's a real love between Frankie and Bernice. In this summer of change that Frankie's experiencing, part of this has to do with kind of discovering her sexuality, but this is done very subtly and sometimes in kind of a strange way. So there's one scene I want to look at here, and this is when Frankie asks John Henry West, who's her cousin, this young boy, don't exactly know how old he is, to come and stay and basically sleep in, to have a sleepover. Already, John Henry was asleep. She heard him breathe in the darkness, and now she had what she had wanted so many nights that summer. There was somebody sleeping in the bed with her. She lay in the dark and listened to him breathe. Then, after a while, she raised herself on her elbow. He lay freckled and small in the moonlight, his chest white and naked, and one foot hanging from the edge of the bed. Carefully, she put her hand on his stomach and moved closer. It felt as though a little clock was ticking inside him, and he smelled of sweat and sweet serenade. He smelled like a sour little rose. Frankie leaned down and licked him behind the ear. Then she breathed deeply, settled herself with her chin on his sharp, damp shoulder, and closed her eyes. For now, with somebody sleeping in the dark with her, she was not much afraid. So you can see that scene is mostly innocent, though there is a suggestion of sexuality there. And really it's Frankie, this young girl who is feeling alone. She feels like she needs to have someone there with her. She's trying to make some kind of connections with people around her, which she can't do. Her cousin, John Henry, is the only person really she hangs out with, and she even gets fed up with him sometimes and tells him to leave and is mean to him. This difficulty that Frankie's experiencing, this change, is described nicely on page 24. This was the summer when Frankie was sick and tired of being Frankie. She hated herself and had become a loafer and a big no-good who hung around the summer kitchen, dirty and greedy and mean and sad. Besides, being too mean to live, she was a criminal. If the law knew about her, she would be tried in the courthouse and locked up in the jail. Yet Frankie had not always been a criminal and a big no-good. Until the April of that year, and all the years of her life before, she had been like other people. She belonged to a club and was in the 7th grade at school. She worked for her father on Saturday morning and went to the show every Saturday afternoon. She was not the kind of person ever to think of being afraid. At night, she slept in the bed with her father, but not because she was scared of the dark. And later, her father is saying, hey, you're too big to be sleeping here. There's some talk, too, throughout this book about how she suddenly grew and got taller. She looks older than she actually is. So this is that awkward stage that Frankie is finding herself in this novel. And that's almost the main character of the novel, the fact that, or the main kind of conflict, that this character, Frankie, is suddenly unconnected to people, suddenly finds the world to be strange. She's estranged from it, and she doesn't know how to deal with that, so she wants to run away. The emotional core of this novel, and also a big chunk of the novel, is really made up of this scene where Frankie is just hanging out in the kitchen with Bernice, and John Henry West is there, and they're just talking. They're telling stories to each other, And this goes on for quite a while. And this is really, I think, the heart of the novel. And this is where we see Bernice's character kind of develop the most. It's not great, she's not greatly developed, but I think more so than any other character in this novel. In their discussions, they're talking about life, they're talking about their past loves, or Bernice is talking about hers, they're talking about people who have died that they've known. And Frankie, this is one of the things she says about connections in the world. This is what I mean, F. Jasmine said. F. Jasmine is Frankie. That's kind of the new word, the new name she wants to go by, F. Jasmine. So the narrator follows along with that. This is what I mean. You are walking down a street and you meet somebody, anybody, and you look at each other, and you are you and he is him. Partly this is a reference to this meeting that she had with this soldier. She wants to tell Bernice about this, but she's afraid to tell her about it because she knows that this guy, this soldier, something about him is not good. She realizes that maybe he was drunk when she met him, and she has this date set with him later that night. So this entire scene, again, what I'm calling the heart of this story, takes place after she's ran into this guy at this and went to the Blue Moon Cafe, which is a bar, and she's gone home. It's afternoon. It's from the afternoon until 9 o'clock when she goes back to see him. Yet, when you look at each other, the eyes make a connection. Then you go off one way, and he goes off another way. You go off into different parts of town, and maybe you will never see each other again. Not in your whole life. Do you see what I mean? Not exactly, said Bernice. I'm talking about this town, F. Jasmine said in a higher voice. There are all these people here I don't even know by sight or name. And we pass alongside each other and don't have any connection. And they don't know me and I don't know them. And now I'm leaving town and there are all these people I will never know. But who do you want to know? Asked Bernice. F. Jasmine answered, everybody in the world, everybody in the world. Frankie thinks that she's leaving town because, again, this is before the wedding. She thinks when she goes off to this wedding, she's not going to come back. So she's getting a bit sentimental, but also she is talking about a real problem that you living in society. You pass all these people, you should be connected to them, but you're not. And there's this desire to want to be connected to them that she has. A few pages later, Bernice actually responds to this. First, she kind of brushes this comment off. Then they get quite intimate with F. Jasmine kind of laying over her, the way it's described here. She's kind of like literally just laying across Bernice. And this is what Bernice has to say in response to that comment I just read about connections. I think I have a vague idea what you were driving at, she said. We all of us somehow caught. We born this way or that way, and we don't know why. But we caught anyhow. I born Bernice. You born Frankie. John Henry born John Henry. And maybe we wants to widen and bust free. But no matter what we do, we still caught. Me is me, and you is you, and he is he. We each one of us somehow caught all by ourselves. Is that what you was trying to say? I don't know, F. Jasmine said. But I don't want to be caught. Me neither, said Bernice. Don't none of us. I'm caught worse than you is. F. Jasmine understood why she had said this, and it was John Henry who asked in his child voice, why? Because I am black, said Bernice. Because I am colored. Everybody is caught one way or another. But they done drawn completely extra bounds around all colored people. They done squeezed us off in one corner by ourselves. So we caught that first way I was telling you, as all human beings is caught. And we caught as colored people also. Sometimes a boy, like Honey, feel like he just can't breathe no more. He feel like he got to break something or break himself. Sometimes it just about more than we can stand. So, quite eloquently here, Bernice is capturing the human condition, but with this feeling of being trapped in who you are, and wanting to be freer than you can actually be. And she's actually capturing the additional problem that she has, which is living in a society that treats her as a second-class citizen. After this interaction, which I think really highlights the important themes in this novel, and the connection that both Frankie and Bernice have to each other, even though they're socially, economically very different, they're both struggling to break out and somehow. After this, Frankie tries to run away from home. Her father wakes up to this, though, and calls the police. And eventually she is caught at the Blue Moon, where she decided to go to maybe because she wants to find someone to go with her. So she thought, okay, maybe I'll just go to that soldier. Maybe I'll get married. And this is her interaction with the law, the police officer. He asks her, why? Why did you come here? She says, what am I doing in here? She repeated. For all at once she had forgotten. And she told the truth when she said finally, I don't know. The voice of the law seemed to come from a distance, like a question asked through a long corridor. Where were you headed for? The world was now so far away that Frances could no longer think of it. She did not see the earth as in the old days, cracked and loose and turning 1,000 miles an hour. The earth was enormous and still and flat. Between herself and all the places, there was a space like an enormous canyon. She could not hope to bridge or cross. The plans for the movies or the Marines were only child plans that would never work, and she was careful when she answered. She named the littlest, ugliest place she knew, for to run away there could not be considered so very wrong. So this is the moment here where, in a sense, this one moment is when Frankie becomes an adult. She realizes that her dreams to be in the movies or to join the Marines, this was childish. It's not going to happen, and that she was just trying to get away from herself, get away from this town, but she's been caught and she's going to stay and, hopefully be more at peace, because she's kind of pushed these dreams aside, these childish dreams, as she called them. The Member of the Wedding, this is a thoughtful novel. It's kind of a quiet novel. There's not a lot of action in it, but you do get what feels like an honest look at a young character trying to discover her place in the world and feeling some irritations by the confining elements that kind of lock her in and make her less than she wants to be. Thank you for watching.